The Scarlet River incident began like any other late summer evening. Heat rising off cracked asphalt, the cicadas sawing their relentless chorus, when Jordan Ellis stepped into the lakeside stop and save in a sweat-darkened soccer jersey. He was 16, tall, careful, the kind of kid who said sir to anyone over 30 because his mother had taught him that sometimes deference was armor. He grabbed a Gatorade and a Snickers, nodded at the clerk, and never saw the patrol cruiser until red and blue light flooded the windows like a sudden storm. Deputy Cole Barnes and Officer Emily Shaw walked in with their voices already raised, a theater of authority. Got a report of a theft nearby, Barnes drawled, eyes locking onto Jordan like a hawk catching movement in the grass. Suspect's a white teen, about 6 feet. The corner of his mouth twitched. What are the odds? Jordan looked down at his own pale hands, at his reflection in the fogging cooler door. I just finished practice. I'm paying for these, he said, setting the bottle and bar on the counter. His heart was hammered in his throat. Keep calm, be polite, remember your rights. His mother's voice, always a lifeline, echoed in his head. Empty your pockets, Shaw said, stepping to block the exit. Her hand rested near her taser like she expected him to run. The clerk, Mr. Adebayo, shook his head behind the register. He's a regular. A good boy, he said softly, but Barnes didn't look away from Jordan. Pockets, he said again. Jordan laid out his things, an old phone with a cracked screen, a folded school ID, a key with a rainbow shoelace looped through it. See? Nothing. You think this is a game? Barnes grabbed his arm. The door chimes sang as the humid night swallowed them. Jordan stumbled onto the concrete, the air thick and damp in his lungs. Barnes slammed him against the hood. Spread. I'm not resisting, Jordan said. The words tasted like metal. The crowd that gathered began as whispers, neighbors walking dogs, a nurse still in scrubs, a teenager lifting a phone like a candle. The nurse, Maria Alvarez, tapped the record with a steady thumb. This is wrong, she said to the lens. He's a kid. The taser's crack split the summer. Jordan buckled, the world fragmenting into sparks and gravel and the hot, oily smell of the hood. A knee dug into his back, hands snatched his wrists, and someone laughed. When he whispered, Mom, it came out small, as if the word itself could slip through the cuffs and fly. What Barnes and Shaw didn't know stood 50 miles away in a glass office overlooking the river, where Supervisory Special Agent Naomi Ellis was reviewing a rack of sealed case files. She'd spent 2 years embedded with an interstate corruption task force. Her coffee had gone cold. When her phone vibrated, she ignored it, until the ping became a steady alarm. 12 missed calls, a link from an unknown number, a message from Mr. Adebayo, they have him. She pressed play. Naomi didn't hear the coffee mug shatter when it fell. She didn't notice the way her hand shook as she snapped open the safe and checked her sidearm by muscle memory. She didn't think as she ran the red lights out of Starwell City and onto Highway 23 toward the town she'd grown up in and then outgrew, Scarlet River. Population 14,206, a place that looked pretty from the outside and hid its rot in the seams. The Scarlet River Police Department smelled like bleach and arrogance. Naomi's badge hit the counter with a slap. I'm here for my son, Jordan Ellis, she said, silk on steel. Visiting hours are. The desk officer's sentence died when the gold seal flashed under fluorescent lights. The room paused, radios breathing static. Chief Helena Pike emerged, uniform starched to perfection, smile tight. Agent Ellis, she cooed. What a surprise. Your son is in an interview. He matched a description. He resisted. I watched the video, Naomi said. Body cam footage. Now, technical difficulties, Pike said without blinking. These things happen. Both cameras malfunctioned at once. Naomi's laugh was clean and sharp. Statistically implausible. They led her down a hall that had seen too many confessions in too few languages. Jordan sat on a metal bench, eyes unfocused, blood drying on his lip. Naomi knelt. You're safe now, she whispered. They don't know who they just touched. By dawn, the footage Maria shot had traveled from a church group chat to statewide feeds to a national timeline. People named it, the Scarlet River Slam. Hashtag spun out their own weather. Inside Naomi's living room, case files became constellations, old names winked back to life. She called everyone in her rings. Her supervisor, internal affairs, a civil rights attorney she'd once pulled from a bar at 2 a.m. She called Dr. and Wu at the hospital to document everything, every bruise, every taser point, like a constellation of intent. Then the system grinned and showed its teeth. Naomi's boss told her to stand down. Her clearance was suspended, pending review. Audrey Grant, her oldest friend from Quantico, called with a voice that sounded like betrayal wearing concern. "Drop Scarlet River, nay. Please." Naomi asked how Chief Pike had sealed the town's files with such speed. Audrey asked her to think about Jordan's future. The call ended. Naomi's house windows shattered that night. A note wrapped around a rock. "Leave or lose everything." She drove to St. Bridget's Church on Broadway, where Reverend Leon Hart had been building a slow fire under plastic smiles for a decade. His office walls held yellowing photographs of marches people pretended not to remember. He spread clippings across his desk like cards. 2006, 2019. White teens shoved and bruised, always at night, always with evidence lost in transfer. "You're not fighting two bad apples," he said. "You're fighting the orchard, Agent Ellis." From there, Naomi walked into Morales Independent Media, brick warehouse, humming servers, where owner-editor Kira Morales sat in a denim jacket covered in pin badges. "Press, pride, vote." "I've been tracking Scarlet River for years," Kira said, flinging up graphs and heat maps. "Civil forfeiture spikes, weird overtime logs, same few surnames on every malfunction report. Someone's paying to keep the lights off." She tapped a screen. And Pike didn't start this. She learned the choreography. They found an ally where most stories die. The town's IT contractor, a man named Owen Riker, who encrypted weekly security backups to a municipal server no one remembered existed. He texted Kira an evidence locker number, C3, and a single warning: "Move fast." Naomi knocked on the Stop and Save's back door at noon. Mr. Adebayo opened, exhausted and brave, the way only immigrants can be. Kira rolled camera. He told the truth. What he saw, what was taken from his office, who threatened his business license. When they left, a young officer, Freddie Nash, cheeks still carrying the idea of innocence, stared at Naomi over the hood of his cruiser. "Chief says she wants to see you," he said. "Something about proper channels." That night, Scarlet River PD's East Wing caught fire. Naomi smelled accelerant under the smoke. Kira kept filming even as firefighters shouted. Her face streaked with soot, one eye red from tear gas used at the day's protest. "They're burning the past," Kira said, coughing. "They think they can erase." But Owen's shadow network blinked to life in the middle of an all-night diner 2 towns over, where Naomi and Kira downloaded fragments over a jittery Wi-Fi. The first minutes were perfect. Jordan buying a drink, polite nods, the officer's slurs unmistakable. The feed corrupted when the beatings began, pixels turning to spilled paint. It was enough to break a lie, not enough to break a system. "Then we go public," Kira said. They bounced the partial footage through 6 countries and 3 proxy layers, posted from a handle no one could tie to skin or place. It burned like dry pine. 10 shares, 100, 1,000, local news, then national. Because people have learned to recognize a certain posture in the frame, a certain voice, a certain cadence of dominance. The town released their own version by afternoon. Clean, cinematic, Jordan aggressive, timestamps inconsistent, if anyone cared to look. Some did. Others only wanted to be done thinking. They came for Kira that night, 6 officers with a badge and a battering ram and a warrant drawn up from a prosecutor Naomi had once beaten in court. They turned her apartment into a ruin. She saved the drive they missed, pressed it into Naomi's hand in St. Bridget's basement, where long folding tables were repurposed into a newsroom. "We go live," Naomi said, looking into a camera she had once dodged like a bullet. "My name is Supervisory Special Agent Naomi Ellis," she said to 100 strangers that became 10,000 within minutes. "3 nights ago, my son stopped for a drink. Watch what they did." She played the real footage. Then she played the doctored clip beside it. She read badge numbers aloud. She listed dates. She used the words pattern and policy more than she said evil, because systems don't wear horns, they file memos. Heavy footsteps thundered above. Officers swarmed the stairs. "Cut the feed," someone yelled. To everyone watching, Naomi said, not looking away as hands closed on her forearms, "Download this. Save it. Share it. Truth doesn't need permission." They cuffed her on camera. Officer Shaw's face was pink with frustration as Naomi lifted her chin and let them lead her upstairs into blue-white light. Kira shouted St. Bridget's address into the microphone as sirens converged. You could hear the crowd gathering even through the old wood. Chief Pike herself took the interrogation, all lemony patience. "Quite a stunt," she purred. "Quite a fire," Naomi said, glancing toward the security camera in the corner and noting its inactive red LED. She counted steps in the hallway. She heard federal boots before Pike did, the rhythm unmistakable. She saw Audrey before she forgave her. Creased suit, red-rimmed eyes, voice like a scalpel. "Chief Pike, step away from Agent Ellis," Audrey said. "This station is under federal investigation." Pike's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Outside, a chant rolled down Main, the cadence of 100 throats learning to speak at once. Justice for Jordan. Justice for Jordan. Naomi let the sound wash over her like a promise. The raid was surgical. IIA agents moved through records and hard drives and dropped ceilings. In the chief's office, a metal lockbox came down from a false void. A paper trail for cowards, bribe ledgers, off-book overtime. A list of officers flagged as reliable. In the evidence room, a technician found a private server none of the uniforms would admit to knowing about. An arc of missing body cams, mislabeled and tucked behind a wall of out-of-order signs. They copied everything. Naomi watched as Audrey's agents unspooled a decade. White teenagers shoved into walls, mouths forced open while the camera faced the linoleum. The malfunction always arriving at the same moment. It wasn't personal, Pike would later say, standing by a cruiser with an overnight bag and a face that had never imagined handcuffs. Just the way we keep order. Order isn't justice, Naomi said, and someone wrote it down somewhere and posted it and printed it on a sign. Not everyone folded. Officer Nash found Naomi in the hallway with shoulders hunched and hands shaking. "I didn't know," he said. "I mean, I knew some things, but," he swallowed. "I kept my own copies. In case there was a day." He led her to a locker in the gym, pried open a dented metal door, and handed over 2 SD cards with masking tape labels. "Shaw Shift, Barnes 06-14. "I didn't know how to be brave," he said, "until I saw you. Bravery learns by watching." They found the money Pike had tried to run with. Bricks of cash in a briefcase, bundles of 20s smelling like basement mold and unreported pain. They found a folder in Audrey's handwriting in Lucas's desk. No Lucas here, but he had a different name in this town, a different badge, and Naomi filmed him through blinds handing a packet to Pike at a cabin by the lake the night before the raid. The envelope Pike gave him back had that rustle everyone recognizes. The betrayal had always been the point. Systems bloom in the space between what we say and what we do. 3 months later, Scarlet River didn't look like itself. That happens sometimes when a town surfaces from under murk. The stop and save had new lights and a mural on its sidewall. Kids in shin guards and cleats, a river running toward the horizon, a hand stopping another hand from falling. The old municipal annex on Pritchard Street had a new name chiseled in stone, the Jordan Ellis Youth Justice Center. Naomi stood at a podium with wind teasing the edges of her notes, and spoke to faces she could now name without glancing at a roster. Mr. Adebayo in a crisp shirt, Reverend Hart with a new scarf a parishioner had knitted because her hands needed to do something after years of silence. Kira filming, a butterfly bandage on her eyebrow, her feed piping live to people who had started sending in small donations, and large ones, and handwritten letters with Midwestern stamps that said things like, "I didn't know. I think I did, but I didn't let myself. When they attacked my son," Naomi said, "they believed we'd be alone. They miscalculated." She spoke of the church basement, the night air, the USB drive she'd found in her glove compartment with a note from Owen written in the tidy print of a man who likes things to line up. Offline metadata. If they burn the server, this lives. She spoke of Officer Nash and Maria and Mr. Adebayo and the boys whose names had not been hashtags because the cameras had looked away or never turned on. 51 wrongful arrests vacated. 28 officers indicted. 3 city officials resigned before the votes were counted. Jordan stood straight back behind her in a blazer that didn't quite fit his shoulders anymore. He wasn't a symbol, and they tried not to make him one. But this is what people do when they need meaning. They lean. He cut the red ribbon. The cheers sounded like relief. Inside, the rooms were full of things the town had needed all along. After-school tutoring, a free legal clinic 2 afternoons a week staffed by volunteers from the law school upriver. Counseling with clinicians who knew how to name trauma without making it the only thing. On the back wall, a court board held printouts of the policy changes Audrey's task force had pushed through at the county and state level. Body cam auto uploads with third-party oversight. A civilian review board with subpoena power. A heat map posted monthly to the city website showing stops by neighborhood and demographic with an explanation people could argue with and fix. People always ask how stories end. Naomi knew better than to promise this was finished. Systems don't topple like statues. They ooze, they seep, they hide in a new shape. But Scarlet River had learned to recognize the smell. And truth, once it gets air, is a difficult tenant to evict. After the speeches, Jordan stood alone in the memorial garden outside, where thyme and rosemary had been planted in a ring around a bench of reclaimed wood. He pressed his palm flat to the slat and felt heat stored from the afternoon. He looked up as Barnes shuffled past in a county-issue suit, flanked by 2 marshals. The deputy kept his eyes down. Officer Shaw stared straight ahead. People parted around them like water around a stone. Naomi watched from the steps and didn't follow. There are doors you don't need to walk through twice. Kira slid beside her. You heard, she said. Your appointment. Federal Civil Rights Initiative. Naomi smiled without showing teeth. Scarlet River won't be the last. There's a map on my desk with pins in it like someone spilled a jar of stars. Kira lifted her camera. Stars look good on you, she said. That night, when the crowd thinned and the river pinked under a sky that was trying out autumn, Naomi drove the long way home. She passed St. Bridget's, where the basement lights glowed like a ship below water. She passed the stop-and safe. Mr. Adebayo was sweeping. He looked up, saw her, and lifted his hand in a small salute. She parked by the river and listened to water talk to stone. Her phone buzzed with a new message from an unlisted number. Owen's clean font again, another town. Same pattern. You in? Naomi typed back, always. She looked up. Across the water, the fairground Ferris wheel turned, slow and patient, cabins rising into brightness and then back into shade. Light, shadow, light again. The wheel kept moving. That was the point.